Um, all right, welcome everybody to the Fall 2022 Information Exchange, the HILT Information Exchange. We're really excited that you're here today. We've got a fantastic presentation and discussion topics to kind of be happening here. If you would want to rename yourself, if you click on the upper right-hand corner of your chat box, you'll see 3 ellipses. If you click on those, you can rename yourself. If you can see mine, I've got my name, my organization, and my pronouns. And also, if you would introduce yourself into the group chat, that'd be appreciated. We do keep copies of the group chat, and it's nice to see people introduce themselves and do that. So go ahead and feel free. But we're really excited that you're here, and we will start right now. So make sure to keep yourself on mute. We do appreciate just one person talking at one time, just so there's not too many noise or talking happening at once. Please use the chat function freely, and I understand a lot of connections kind of happen behind the scenes, so feel free to reach out to someone. If you see someone here you want to reach out to, send them a direct message. That usually goes pretty well, and we welcome you. I'll turn it over.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? I hope you are having a tremendously fabulous day, and I want to thank you on behalf of the conveners, on behalf of the HILT captains, for joining us here today. So I'm not going to read every word that's on that slide because I'm sure you got it, but I just want you to understand that this is one of those incredible opportunities that this is for us, by us. We're a small team, we're a diverse team. We come together because we all have a vested interest in improving the access to a skilled healthcare workforce. Since 2018, we have made some phenomenal improvements, and not just in the workforce, but also moving forward equity and diversity, because the reality is, unless we make space for all, we've really made space for none. And we truly want to be seen as a group focused on being the change we want to see. So thank you so very much for coming. Let's look at our agenda for today. So we'll be having some high quality conversations. First up on the agenda is going to be our college update, focusing on healthcare program enrollments. And my friend Dan is going to come and lead that conversation. So Dan, the mic is yours. Step on up.
Oh my. So thank you, James and DJ3 and my buddy Ryan, my tennis buddy Ryan, and Shalane. Just a FYI, you guys, Ryan took it to me last week in Portland on the tennis court. Just anyways, I'm happy to represent the community college system. What I am going to do is just kind of give you some high-level overviews, and then an opportunity to kind of do a deeper dive into some of the enrollment data. What I'm going to present to you is some broader statewide data. And so I would welcome individuals like Liz Patterson and other deans that are here, or directors that are here from the community college, to provide some context in terms of what's happening locally at their particular college. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully it says, oh, you cannot share your screen while the other, okay, let's work on this.
I just stopped sharing, Dan.
All right, can you see my screen?
I cannot.
Not yet.
Let's see if I can do this again here. Share screen. And so now you should be able to see it.
There it's coming. There we go.
Yep.
We can
Yes,
see your screen.
Yes.
All right. So for general enrollments, this is for the community college system. And this is, again, just going to provide kind of an overview. So for the fiscal year last year, 21-22, overall, we were down 6% total headcount. FTEs, we were down 10%. Professional technical programs, which really impact our workforce education programs, our healthcare programs, down 16%. Academic transfer programs were down 8%, and basic education for adult programs was down 9%. So one of the things or areas that they look at is also in the area of race and ethnicity. And so I know that this group is really interested in kind of a lot of DEI work and what we're doing to attract a real diverse workforce. So this is just kind of a FYI. This is where we're at with the different ethnic groups. So the American Indian, Alaska Native, we're down 9%. Asian, we're down 5%. Black African, African American descent, we're down just 0.7%. Hispanic, we're down 3%. Pacific Islander, we're down 8%. White, we're down 9%. And those who identify as more than one race, we're down 2%. We're not reported 2%. So I'm going to stop sharing this and share another item. I mean, any quick kind of comments or reflections on that data that I'm sharing? Again, that's statewide. You know, when Chelanne asked me to do this, and then I sent a request to the state board, they told me that, for example, if you want to, let me see, I need to, actually, I don't want to share right now. If you want like actual to-date information, you have to submit a request quite a time period before that request is due. So that just doesn't happen overnight. So we do have numbers for the summer, and essentially those downward trends continue for the summer. And what we're hearing from colleges is that there's continued downward trend in enrollments. Liz, do you want to say anything more, or Eric Stewart, about what's happening with the colleges? And then I'm gonna go ahead and bring up another document while I mean, just in terms of what's happening at Edmonds.
Overall, our enrollments are across the college are up a little bit over this time last year. Not a significant amount, but we are still down on the prof tech side, and we are still down on the specific allied health programs. Nursing is fine, but they have seen a decrease in applications for the program. We always get more applications than we have space. So they can fill their slots, but we have seen a decrease in the number of applications. I think we're actually looking to hope that our enrollments on the allied health side are going to go up a bit, because our core classes are higher. The enrollments in that are higher, and those are the ones that feed into our allied health certificate. So that's a positive.
Okay, so this is Eric Stewart from Bellevue College. I'm not sure if my stats fit directly into yours, because mine's a Bachelor of Applied Science. So we're in the college program, but we're the second two of a 2+2 program. Our enrollments are up 41%. One of the advantages we have is that we're a 100% asynchronous program. We've also changed our certificate program to be more of a post-baccalaureate certificate, which is helping professionals, healthcare professionals, move from their healthcare and IT positions over into informatics. And so we've been really pushing that message out there as far as the benefit and the skill producing. We're seeing a real need for informatics in the bachelor level. This is one thing that isn't really out there. The informatics is at the master's level. And so I'm trying to put out my I'm trying to send out students that have that entry level informatics skills out there for that specific entry level position so that we can meet that need. So we've been promoting the program. I think the asynchronous part of it has really helped. And so we're up in our enrollment.
But Eric, is it fair to say that most of your students are incumbent workers? So they're folks that already have a post-secondary credential and then are continuing their education?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
A lot of the students that we have, about 80 to 90% of the programs are in the BAS program. They're students that don't necessarily have that bachelor's level. They have the associate level,
Okay.
and they're moving from the associate level to the bachelor level. If they have the bachelor degree, then they're in line for their certificate. So we have that conversation early on in the application process. You want to just do the 1-year program if you got the bachelor's degree. And a lot of the students that we're getting, they're working adults, but they don't have that 4-year degree. So they're setting off that track.
Okay, but they'll likely have a certificate or a 2-year post-secondary credential. Got it. Okay.
Right. So we're not getting the ones that do not have any sort of education, or the ones that are direct coming right out of high school. We don't even have that track. We have kind of in our system, we don't really have the a pre-informatics degree. We have to kind of feed off of all the rest of the degrees. So it might be a different thing than what Dan is showing.
Okay.
So this is this is the annual enrollment report or summary for the academic year 21-22. And this shows the actual trend lines for CTC headcount and FTEs. And there's a couple of charts here that I want to show that I think is pretty interesting. So I'll just highlight those when we go through it. So again, this is the trend line for headcount and FTEs from basically for the last decade. A couple of these I'm going to skip over.
So Dan,
kind of related to your comment earlier, Ryan. So this shows a chart of the difference between transfer, professional, technical, basic ed, and other. And you can see that pretty much in all areas, with the exception of basic ed, there is a little bit of a downward trend in enrollment. And this kind of shows more of a specific chart. And we noticed actually a little bit of increase in English language courses or enrollment at the end of this last year. And then kind of more directly related to your earlier comment, this is kind of related to full-time and part-time.
Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of stayed pretty consistent across the decade. This is for Running Start. So this is essentially kind of the dual enrollment programs for high school students taking concurrent college classes. And then again, interesting, and what Eric is involved with is the headcount and full-time equivalent for the baccalaureate programs. And you can see that there's been, for the last decade, just a really great steady increase in participation in baccalaureate programs, with a slight decline this last year. This
So
shows
Dan,
age groups. Go ahead.
you use the term FTE, and for some of us who are in different spaces, that term maybe have a different meaning. So when you're using the term, what specifically does it refer to?
Well, I would ask my expert in the room, my call a friend partner there, Liz Patterson, to respond to that question.
FTEs is how we calculate our enrollment. So it's the ratio of students to faculty. And there's a certain percentage that, X number of students, it depends on the program, but an example would be 5 students per 1 faculty equals 1 FTE. So that's sort of 1 student enrollment kind of thing. It's a bit of an odd system.
Great.
I think from the state board perspective, an FT for the enrollment count, it's 45 credits is what they're using. So a full-time student is considered 15 credits per quarter for 3 quarters with summer off. So if you have 3 students that are each taking 15 credits during an academic year, those 3 students equal 1 full-time equivalent student. If you have a traditional student that comes in and goes full-time, and they take 15 credits a quarter for fall, winter, spring, then they are an FTE. If you get a super student who then takes 15 credits in the summer as well, because they want to get done, that person actually counts as 1.3 FTE. So it's a way of kind of aggregating that, as Dan showed, that part-time to full-time. It's another mechanism. That's why head count is generally higher than FTE count.
And the reason you have the super student in the summer is because summer quarter generally tends to be around 8 weeks. So taking 15 credits in 8 weeks, they truly are a super student. So
not recommended. We do
no,
not
we actually try. We
students
actually try to discourage that if we can. And financial recognizes that as well, because they'll keep a student at full-time level for financial aid, but taking less credits because summer is shorter.
So I think this next chart is really interesting because it kind of shows the age distribution from before 20 all the way up to 40 and above. And as you can see, that and I think those of you in this group, this is no surprise that the community colleges, train across the age spectrum, not just, the 18 or 19-year-old coming out of high school.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting chart. And then this is kind of going back to the race and ethnicity, just looking at it a little differently. And I think last but not least, head count by gender. And that is, as you can see, we have more female students than male students across the board. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and come back into I think the other thing that we talked about in our meeting yesterday, because I host a monthly meeting of allied health deans and directors. We talked a bit about some of the challenges, and pretty much every college is experiencing challenges with recruiting faculty.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just, like everyone else has recruiting challenges. Well, the colleges aren't immune to that by any means. And we're particularly challenged with that because of the pay disparities between what the community college system pays and what private industry pays. And so that's an ongoing issue. And I know that we're, James, if you want to go ahead and share that first slide in terms of kind of topics that we're focused on, that would be great.
Can I ask a question? I'm curious, this is Shauna. Dan and maybe others in the room from the community and technical college system, I think there are some things that we can see in those trends that sort of make kind of intuitive sense based on some factors. So for example, I would expect the enrollment in applied baccalaureates to have grown over the last decade because more applied baccalaureate programs have come online, for example, right? Like whether the growth is commensurate with the new programs or there's growth beyond that represents just more interest in those applied baccalaureates than we might have had in the past. Like those are the things that are, you know, a little less, you might have to pick apart the data to understand. But the thing that I'm feeling curious about is there are sort of what are sort of the more typical patterns of increases and decreases in enrollment that are aligned with the economy, right? Like there's a sort of general inverse relationship, right? Like as the economy goes up, enrollment goes down. As the economy is worse, enrollment goes up. And I'm curious to know if any of you would have a sense of whether what we're seeing in the statistics you shared, Dan, is that how outside of the norm is that, right? Like, is it a different trend than we would expect to see based on just sort of changes in the economic situation? Because it feels like maybe there's something a little different happening here. And I don't know if it's the pandemic combined with inflation, combined with, you know, other, you know, just a million other factors. But I'm curious to know how much of this it feels different than the sort of quote unquote normal ebbs and flows and enrollment that align with changes in the economy.
So I would definitely welcome comments from my community college partners, and Liz does have her hand up, and so I will welcome that. I would say that by and large, when I speak to community college administrators, deans, directors, faculty, their perceptions is that this is very, very different, and that the pandemic has we're still dealing with the effects of the pandemic. And it's almost like, there's kind of a dichotomy around the occupation of the healthcare occupations, in that there's a lot of fear around working in healthcare, and at the same time there's a lot of idealism around kind of who the heroes are in healthcare. And so there's this mixture, particularly around health workforce education, that we're seeing an increase because people want to help, but we're also seeing kind of a decrease because people are afraid of of the work that we do. So Liz, you want to go ahead and comment on Shauna's question?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's one of the things that we particularly experience. We offer a lot of entry-level certificates. So we offer a lot of entry-level on the nursing assistant, phlebotomy, EKG, pharmacy technician, dental assisting. And our typical population kind of fits in with the demographics that Dan was showing, is they tend to be served more of the underrepresented populations, which I think is good, because I think that can help increase the diversity in healthcare, because we also have pathways for them to move up. But they were also the ones that were hit hardest by the pandemic. So to your point, Shauna, they face the same issues that a lot of people just working face: childcare issues, transportation issues, you know, being able to support themselves while they're going to school. And I think the pandemic, childcare agencies were closed, they're reopening, but there are still issues around that. You know, they're single parents. So, you know, kind of getting back to what they feel is a normal life, where they can take the time to go to school, to get their kids back in school.
Mhm.
Hopefully that's going to start making a difference. And then, as Dan said, I brought up yesterday, is there is a lot of fear. You know, when I talk to students and I advise students, I've had students ask me, is it safe? Plus, they're also hearing a lot of burnout issues.
Mhm.
And a lot of that's, you know, just short staffing and pandemic. And I said, well, short staffing is good because it's opportunities for you, but then they don't want to be short staffed into a burnout position kind of thing. So, you know, I think that just kind of as an occupational sector, maybe we need to do a little rebranding around healthcare that, yes, we do have a shortage of workers. We need to get more workers. But I don't know, kind of bringing it back to that, it's a great place to be and lots of opportunities type of mindset.
Hey,
So,
Dan, just a quick question. Do we think it'd be possible that we could submit a request to SBCTC? Would they be able to provide some of the same data for healthcare programs? Because I think while it's good that we're still getting the dip in nursing applications, definitely kind of piqued my concern that potentially the front end of that pipeline, that happened during COVID, might be a bit more of a drop off than what we were looking at. And I'm just curious, and it wouldn't need to be is that something they could generate given enough time, or do we need to send cookies or something to maybe get that?
Yeah, there actually Carolyn McKinnon provided me with a kind of a data dashboard that we can actually do a deeper dive into the healthcare occupations for the specific colleges that are represented in the health community. And we could do that. We can provide that information. And I do have a kind of an example of that if you're interested in me showing it right now, or I can just take your request and we can maybe if there's specific occupations that you want me to focus on, or we can we can bring that back to this group.
Cool.
So
Susan, I
Susan
see your hand
Stillman.
raised.
Did I hear my name?
Yes, I think
Um,
twice.
I'm not volunteering to do all this, but I will, if I can have the screen for a minute. It is entirely doable. It's just a matter of getting on their list.
Okay.
We have at the Center for Health Workforce Studies, some of you may know, we've funded to do we have a Washington Oral Health Workforce tracking program now funded by Delta Dental, and there's a proviso with the state legislature covering us this year. So we're about ready to go public with our initial dashboard. And of course, using the iPads data, you can pull out programs and blah, blah, blah. So this is just an example of what you're looking for health, a specific healthcare occupation, but dental hygiene is one of them. This one's pretty interesting when you see that drop in dental hygiene in 2020. I presume that is COVID. But I'm just showing, yes, the answer to your question is someone can do that because those data are publicly available. It just takes a little bit of programming time. And let's see, we have some completions data for dental assisting programs to the extent those are offered in community and technical colleges in the state. So again, that comes from the Department of Education's iPads data. So just thought I'd share those with you.
and thank you so very much for that rich, informative conversation. We'll have a few minutes later on to go into a deeper dive as we talk about some of these issues. But right now, as we look at our agenda, it's time for us to move forward and hear from the industry update. So at this time, I'm going to ask Angie Graves to come. And Angie, the microphone is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, DJ3, and hi, everybody. So I don't have the pretty charts that that Dan and others had as far as my update goes, but I thought I would share a little bit about, what's happening at Providence. I've now been there for 4 months and diving into a lot of these challenges as we're looking at, what is our plan? How are we going to address these future shortages that are coming from the issues that we're seeing with lower enrollments in the colleges and lower graduations and, all of those things that are clearly severely impacting our future talent pools. So I wanted to just share a little bit about our specific challenges at Providence and kind of where we are. I lead strategy for all of talent acquisition across all of Providence, and unfortunately didn't have time to dive into the details. Plus, we just implemented a new system, and so it's not as easy to get the details right now. But I did just want to share, we are our overall requisitions have actually decreased over the last year, and I think other healthcare systems might be seeing that as well, not necessarily because we filled all the jobs, but because we're all, I think, seeing the impacts and the true impacts now that we have some time under us of COVID and how it impacted our revenue generation and things like that. So I think we're trying to stabilize and really ensure that the positions that we do have open are critical positions. That being said, we're still across the program, looking for over 14,000 individuals, and that is a decrease of about 26% from the prior year. However, that being said, specifically, if you think of our nursing openings and which are our most critical needs and kind of biggest deficit, that is 32% of our current openings, and that number remains about the same from prior year. So if you think about that, the percentage of our openings has increased significantly, specifically for nursing. So we definitely are seeing that as a challenge, and we're trying to address that through a number of different ways. Our focus, and I'd love to hear from other industry as well, but just quickly, we're focusing on speed, volume, and experience as far as our hiring goes. How are we speeding up the process for our candidates? How are we increasing or improving the execution of the process to get people through more quickly? How are we increasing our volume of candidates through a variety of different outreach means, and specifically focusing on, what are our, community relationships? What are the school relationships that we are developing, so that even as enrollments are dropping, we're still making sure that we are maximizing those relationships and feeding folks into our pipelines. And then obviously we have a huge focus on DEI efforts, various community partners there as well. So all those efforts are still going and still going strong, if not even stronger than they might have been in the prior year and prior to COVID, for sure. And then that experience piece, which is really the key differentiator, I think, right now in the candidate experience. What are we doing to differentiate ourselves in that initial experience that will hopefully have candidates and folks out there choose, to take an opportunity with us. Because they have, as we all know, a lot of opportunities in front of them, those who are out there and graduating and looking for work. So I just wanted to share some of our key things that we're doing to try to combat this, which is, but I think all of us from an industry perspective are a little nervous, if not a lot nervous, about seeing some of these numbers that you guys are sharing. So I'd be curious from other industry on the call, what are some additional things that you're focusing on or that you're doing to try to combat this, or is there something else about this that might be impacting your business that I didn't share?
So at Health Point, we are trying to partner earlier in the academic process. So high school, junior high, elementary, with really a goal of letting people know these opportunities exist and then pointing them into the appropriate pathways that will allow them to acquire the skills, talents, knowledge, and abilities that we need. We're trying to get the pipeline beef back up. We're being very intentional in contacting in our communities where we're serving. We're also at times bringing young people into the clinic environment to share information there. And again, the goal is really to get them to start thinking about healthcare careers earlier versus later.
Yeah.
And
Oh, are you there?
I was finished. So, I was like, yes.
So
Oh.
DJ3, are you plugging into the work that Joe is doing, and with the HILT collaborative as well, or is this a yes and component?
It
that
is.
career
It is.
exploration?
Yes, and
Okay.
Joe
All
and I are talking, and we're really trying to get integrated there. And at the same time, we're trying to, as an extension of being a community-based health center, really getting into the community and really connecting with the community about, hey, have you considered, are you thinking about, here are some of those pathways to consider.
And this is Joe speaking. DJ3 and I finally met in person yesterday for the first time, so we will be in close contact about any ways that I can be a resource for you, DJ3, and we can just go from there.
I did see a question in the chat from John Glenn. Angie, quick question: what percentage of your 1,400 requisitions are RN needs?
So it's 14,000.
14,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
requisitions, and about 26%. Well, no, sorry, about 32% are RN opening. So we have about 4,600 open RN. That's not just in Washington. So I apologize, I wasn't able to peel out just Washington from my enterprise view. But I think about 30 to 40% of all of our enterprise requisitions are Washington. So you can figure it out from there, I guess.
Would that be the same? Are folks from Children's on here? Is that a similar percentage that could be for your organization as well? Oh, I thought we had Sean on.
I had her.
And Shelly, I see your hand up.
Wanted to kind of contribute to the conversation about what current state is at Valley Medical Center, at least. So part of my role as professional development specialist is I also oversee clinical student placements, while also overseeing our nurse residency program for our med-surg new nurses that are transitioning to practice after completing their nursing programs. And so I get to hear a lot of what's going on from both ends between academia as well as the healthcare aspect, and the burnout is really hitting everyone hard in multiple aspects. And it has a terrible trickle-down effect to the students that we're trying to bring in to show what our organization looks like, because if the staff are burnt out, the students actually see that as well, and it makes them less optimistic about what the outlook will be once they transition to practice. Something that I really struggle with as well is I am now 3 months into this current residency program that I'm overseeing, and a lot of them are actually starting to experience some lateral violence as a result of the staff that are burnt out. So something that I'm working on, I also overteach our charge nurse classes and preceptor classes, is how to identify your own feelings on how you're combating your own compassion fatigue and burnout, what resources are available to you, so that kind of behavior doesn't impact the people that are there trying to learn and trying to support you in supporting these patients. So kind of trying to work out this tri-prong impact. And I have spoken with my other partners academically, and it sounds like they're trying to do similar things. It's just there's not enough people at the table to help support these endeavors.
Shelly, are you a nursing professional development specialist?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get some I was curious about that.
Yes.
Thanks for calling that out in terms of the kind of the correlation between existing staff and the challenge with training new staff. I think it's really important. Thank you.
And Shelley, you had
I think
we had a question in the chat, which was, have you had to lower the number of clinical placements you can offer for students?
During pandemic, we did peak pandemic as a result of all of our units closing down. We had to reallocate labor pool. So the departments that had closed down, we had to allocate staffing towards other areas. So that impacted our numbers. I have since worked on building relationships with our leadership to help bring those numbers back up and trying to find unique opportunities to place students where we didn't have before.
I like how you're calling out, Shelley, some of the impacts to our current staff and how that's going to impact our new folks as they come in, especially as they get exposure, to the work, because they are going to see, that folks are worn out, which doesn't make it a big attractor, right? For folks who are coming through and doing their clinicals and all of that. So I think it's interesting. I think it was was it a dental assistant, that the graduation rates have gone down, and it makes you wonder, are we losing potential students through that part of the process? Are there any ideas about that, I guess, from the school perspective, when people might be dropping out of, are we losing people in the middle of that clinical? That just made me very curious.
Our dental assisting program is really new, like really new, next quarter. But it's interesting. Since we announced it, I've had a lot of calls from local dental offices that have a lot of shortages in the dental assistant area, and we're working to see if we can get them through a couple of our first classes, particularly the infection control, which includes sterilization techniques. They would actually hire them on part-time to help do some of the dental assisting roles while they're finishing school, and then they could also do the clinical placements there. So everybody's getting just a little creative.
Yeah. Kara, I see you have a hand up. Or was that a mistake?
Oh, it helps if I'm not on mute. Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Okay, perfect.
I was going to say, I really appreciate Shelley addressing that lateral violence, because I think that this year more than ever before, we're seeing that in these precepted and clinical experiences with these students. These nurses in the hospital are burnt out, and it's hard on them. It's hard on them to be expected to take students, and then that frustration is then put on the student. And I will be really honest, this is the first year I've actually lost students because of the way that they were treated in a clinical experience. And it's this, wow. It's unfortunate because we do have a history of nurses eating their young. For anyone who's from healthcare, that's a very real thing. And this is the first time that I have actually lost a student and not been able to mitigate what had happened, because they were so disenfranchised with the experience of healthcare.
And that's frightening, right? I mean, you think about the fact that enrollment's declining, we're not seeing, clearly there's already not going to be enough, specifically nursing, but really most of our clinical professionals, there just aren't going to be enough of them as we move into the future. And so when you have people that are interested and that do, want to give it a shot, and then they have experiences like that in our own facilities, that then discourages them. Oh, just kind of hurts my heart a little bit, or a lot of it.
And I have to say that, and I feel like I'm in the past have actually been part of the problem, because I think it's, individuals like Kara and Liz, they just need to, help these students prepare, and teach more about psychological armor to prepare them to get into the kind of the trenches. But that's a horrible answer. That's a horrible response. Our education program shouldn't have to prepare our students to be able to be trauma resistant from their peers. I mean, it's kind of pathetic if we're spending all of our time educating nursing students or other healthcare students to get ready for the trauma. I mean, the healthcare delivery system in and of itself is traumatic. let alone the culture and their peers.
Yeah. Well, and I say it the opposite way, Dan. What are we doing in our facilities and in-house, right, to ensure that as students come in, they are receiving the best experience ever. And so they're going to be even more excited about the opportunity that they've chosen, to pursue and the career they've chosen to pursue. So what are we doing, or what can we do internally just to make sure that it doesn't happen? And yes, nurses eat their young. We all know these things. But even that is something that I think, or at least in a couple of organizations that I've been in, we've tried to improve, right, those experiences. And it just feels like we have some work to do, because if we're seeing decreased enrollments when we get them into our facilities, we want to make sure that we keep encouraging them to stay on that path. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Shelley, because I had not actually thought about that.
Well, and Angie, to your point as well, in terms of staff satisfaction, that's going to keep them engaged with working with students, for example, staff are not motivated by money anymore. They can get all of these incentive bonuses, pay raises. It is not for them. They are looking for genuine leadership that's going to have their best interests at heart. And to Dan's point, you're right, that psychological armor, you're fixing symptoms, you're not fixing the cause. So how do we do that root cause analysis to nip this in the bud so we can get back to focusing on getting these pipelines opened up to get the students through?
Thank you, everybody, for this amazing conversation. I think there's a lot of interest here, which is why we have set up some breakout rooms, not breakup rooms, so that so we can go a little bit deeper. So James, glad I could make y'all laugh on a Thursday. James has got those set up, and we have some facilitators as well. Dan will be in a room. I will be in a room. Angie will be in a room as well. And so that's a time to talk a little bit more and then bring back those ideas to the bigger group as we report out. So James, you want to tell us anything we need to know about breakouts?
All the breakout rooms have been done, and we'll probably be in breakouts for about 20 minutes. And just a correction, we have Shalane, Angie, and DJ3 are the leads for those 3 rooms. Just all right. Thank you, everybody, and we will send everyone to breakout rooms, and we'll come back for the report out. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right.
I don't think I'm assigned to a room because I came late.
Okay. I will assign you right now. Thanks. Let's see here. Not really well. Hey, Shauna,
Hey, James,
I'm gonna go ahead and put you, we're in breakouts and I'll put you in one of the rooms.
I was, sorry, hold on one sec. I was in the breakout with Angie
Oh.
but my audio was sort of messed up, so I'm restarting.
Gotcha. Okay. Put you back into Angie's room?
That would be great.
Okay, thanks. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Hopefully everyone had some great discussions, and if you can see the screen, we have 2 questions for the report out. It is, what are the 2 takeaways from your breakout sessions that you can share? And then what could next steps look like? So we can hear from group number 1, and that was with Shalann's group. Shalane, either you or if you have a spokesperson that can share a little bit about the discussion, that'd be fantastic.
Sure, I'll start and then I will open it up to the team from the room if they have anything else to add. One thing that came up really was about taking care of existing staff that are burnt out and the effect that that has on students coming in. So it's both a recruitment issue as well as a retention issue, right? And so thinking about how to support those existing staff so that students aren't experiencing that. The other thing, you know, Sue talked about, it all comes down to incentives, right? So how are we incentivizing schools to get their students employed? Where are the outcomes or the incentives tied to that? Because that could in turn help the employment numbers for those that are in the programs. And at the same time, for industry, what does it look like to have true authentic partnerships where both parties are not sending blame, but rather coming up with some collaborative solutions that require some time and energy on both sides?
Thank you. Anyone else from Shalann's group want to add any additional comments? Okay, good discussion. We'll move on to Angie's group.
Hi, I'll go ahead and represent for Angie's group. 2 key takeaways that we took. First one being looking at what pre-existing processes we already have in place at an academic partnership level as well as from a statewide level. So Kara had mentioned our HEAT model. So we already have this pre-existing relationship between academia as well as healthcare organizations. Can we broaden that up to work on improving the enrollment numbers? We also talked about with Veterans Association, making sure that if there's individuals that already have experience with healthcare, that maybe that we can find a way to get credit for them so that they can transition to these programs and shave off some time for hours that they would already have met through experience. There was also talk about other states where they discuss RN practice partnerships, where basically we would incentivize nurses already working in the hospital and have them double as clinical instructors. That way the schools don't have to struggle with finding people that will train these individuals. So it's kind of a 2 birds, 1 stone situation. The other takeaway that we took was ultimately we're still in a recovery period. So all of the individuals that went through pandemic, they're still struggling. All of the people that are trying to figure out how to recover from it are still struggling too. So it may very well be a watch and wait situation, but also trying to figure out what can we do while we're watching and waiting.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Shelley, for that great report out. Anyone else from Angie's group that want to chime in and add a few more comments? Okay, we will move over to DJ3's group.
So yeah, I will talk for our group. I'll summarize and then ask the team to kind of add on any thoughts that they might have. So the first question was, you know, how can industry and education work together to promote increased healthcare program enrollments that meet workforce needs? And there's a lot said, but I think we can break up our conversation in 3 points. So the first point was kind of widening our understanding of the applicant pool. The second was kind of making and getting all types of partners involved in the recruitment of people. And then 3, being effective around the collaboration of these partners. And I'll add a little bit more context to those 3 points. So the first point about kind of widening the applicant pool, I think Elizabeth was talking about, hey, you know, rather than just thinking about clinical staff being part of new clinical roles, let's think about getting non-clinical staff also being part of the clinical roles as well. And then the second point about getting all types of partners, Dan was talking about how, you know, rather than just kind of working as a siloed community college or a university or a healthcare organization, you know, it's really important for us to kind of come together as a collective around this. And then finally, you know, the third point about being effective around collaboration. So Lee talked about having visibility about the programs that we have so that people understand that there are these opportunities. And then, John was kind of talking about how there's these grants that folks can take advantage of. And then finally, the second question was, how have traditional student and employee recruitment strategies changed to keep up without fluctuating labor markets? And this was a two-part answer, I think. So the first part was understanding the applicant pool. And so, here it's that, technology has changed, and there are individuals that are now using the cell phone rather than a laptop. So thinking about recruitment strategies that cater to that new kind of technology need. But second, rather than just using old and new, be mindful about using new and old recruitment strategies. So yes, being mindful of new technologies, but also having employers be in front of the employees, because there's nothing better than actually having that kind of face-to-face conversation.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, any other additional comments from that group? DJ3, you're on mute.
I was just letting everybody know they rock. Team was great. You were the people. Way to go, team. Way to go, all the conversations. Yeah.
All right, we're going to pass it over to DJ3 and Angie for any comments regarding the discussion topics, and we'll be going to a close after that.
So we want to thank you for your time, your thoughts, your energies. The way we make change is by collectively bringing together great minds and having these sorts of conversations. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Angie, is there something you'd like to share at this time?
Well, thanks, DJ3. I think I will just reiterate the thanks and appreciation and gratitude for this entire group. I think it's getting our two functions together and really thinking through these things together, I think is really what's going to make that different. And we didn't talk a whole lot about next steps, but I believe that each of us, and I know everyone that I interacted with today, there's just some amazing ideas and things that you can take back. What can you do in your own organization and with your own partners that you developed, and what new partnerships can you develop through what you've learned and the people you've talked to today? So go back, do something, because we clearly all have some issues, and I think we can work through this together, and we can do it.
Thank you, Angie. Thank you. And again, we do thank you. This has been an incredible experience. I heard some things I hadn't heard before. I heard some things that I'm looking to take back to my organization and potentially try and do something different. And my hope is that you heard some things too that made you say, yeah, let's give that a shot. And don't tell anybody, but a simple change, not a lot, a simple change is the first step to a larger change. So I encourage you, take that first step. I want to thank you for allowing me to hang out with you, MC this incredible day. James has some last information to share. And so as you can see here, thank you for sharing this. We've come to the conclusion HILT days are going to be Thursday. We think that's a great day. We think by having that predictability, it allows you to plan in your schedule. We know you won't be here every time, but by helping you have that predictability, times, dates, you'll be able to put that in your calendar because we are absolutely better together. So again, we want to thank you. Our next meeting is, what's next on the agenda? Yes, there you go. We've got our Talent Pipeline Committee coming up on Thursday, October 27th. Then we're back for our fall meeting in November. And then our support partner check-in towards December. Now we're hoping maybe as things go well, pandemic keeps going, maybe early next year, we'll finally get a chance to come together collectively in a space and connect at the same time. That's the hope. But until then, again, on behalf of my fellow captains, our conveners, and each one of you as our members, thank you so very much for being part of this engagement today. You rock. And if nobody has told you that, I told you, and I tell you again, you rock. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Hey, James and Shalane, do you want to hang on a second? Do you have a few minutes?
Sure.
Thanks for letting me hang out with you.